All right, we are in Frisco, Texas at Napa Valley Drive. This is April 25th, Friday, 2025. So, Mom, tell everybody your name, where you were born, and when you were born.
My legal name is Dixie Beatty, my maiden name, and I was born in Webster, South Dakota, in a hospital in Dade County.
What date?
February 25th, 1942.
Okay. Just like we talked about with Dad, these questions are context of your kids. So, I'll ask you, Mom,
So you can make me cry.
what is your happiest memory of us as a group?
As a group,
Yeah, not individually, just in.
well, that's hard when there's so many of them. Well, as a group, as adults, I guess you're probably wondering, is this for adults or children?
Happiest memory.
I think of, as adults, your sensitivity and warmth toward your parents is really very, very sweet and very kind, and I love that. I love that.
Can you remember the first few days of motherhood? What was that like when Brad was born?
The first 2 days.
Well, I mean, first week, first month, whatever. It doesn't have to be a really restricted period. Just
Well, I would say that I was pretty unprepared for what it meant to be a mom because I thought I knew how to take care of children. I thought I knew how to babysit, and I thought, well, I can do this. But when the rubber meets the road and you're suddenly a mother, and this little infant is totally dependent on you for whatever decisions you're making toward or for him, was a very sobering experience. And so I became a very focused person trying to be a parent with my limited human maturity. So motherhood did more to push me toward becoming a mature individual than probably anything I ever had, because it was just a very sobering experience to suddenly realize I was a mother. I was really serious. And when that child started toddling around the apartment and the floor and playing, and I thought, he's walking now. Pretty soon he's going to be talking, and he's going to ask me about God. What am I going to tell him about God? I didn't have enough answers of my own at that time that I could honestly bring a child to God consciousness. I was the one that was arriving at God consciousness. I knew there was a God, and I had certainly been saved as a child and understood salvation, but I certainly didn't live as though I was a child of God. I wanted to do my own thing and be independent from what my sisters were doing. I wanted to do my own thing. So what it did was left a big gap in me.
you had any nieces or nephews before you had your own kids?
Well, yeah, there's Pam. I was 11 when Pam was born.
Okay.
Um,
So you had some when you say you had
I
experience.
had a lot of babysitting.
Okay, that's
But there was always somebody there as a backup. And when I became a mother and I was by myself, there was no backup.
Where were you
And I
living?
thought, oh my goodness,
Where were you living at the time
this baby needs a bath.
when you had when Brad was born?
I got to do this every day. We were living in an apartment in Essex Junction, Vermont. Brad was born in the Gosbrian German hospital. It was staffed by nuns, and they wore white habits, and they came in their flowing gowns, and they were wonderful though. They were wonderful because they were on the maternity ward, and there was many babies had been born, like 23 babies had been born within a week. And those nuns loved it, and they were wonderful. And when your dad brought me red roses, and when I was leaving the hospital after 4 days, the nuns asked if they could keep the roses, because they take the petals and make rosaries out of the petals. So.
That's a good story, Mom. Thank you. I didn't know that about the nuns and Brad and the roses. That's cool. What do you want or wish most for your kids?
Well, I want them to recognize the importance of living a life for God and living a life to glorify the Lord, and to be comfortable teaching their own children what that means. Because in our current culture, my grandchildren will not get it anywhere else. They're going to get it from us, or they're going to get it from my sons. That's my desire for that. Because that's where true happiness will lie, and that's where they'll be the most fulfilled.
I love it. Okay. This is in regard to Brad.
Back to Brad.
What moment did you feel the most proud of Brad?
Brad was the oldest, and there were many times that he got overlooked because we were busy with other children. But if I had to go back, and as a child, he was a ring bearer in a wedding, and he did such a fantastic job. He was so cute and so disciplined, and so did exactly what he was supposed to do, and he just did a great job. And he was just a little guy. He was about 7 or 8, I think. I don't remember. Anyway, that's one thing. That's just one thing. But the other thing is just how he would take seriously what was expected of him. And when I say that, I think of when you guys had to get ready for school and get on the bus and go to Fourth Baptist Day School. There was some things that had to fall in place to make you, or to get out the door and to be organized and get on your schedule, because it was early in the morning, earlier than the children in the neighborhood were going. So he was always very conscientious. And I guess when I think about Brad, I would say he was very conscientious about anything that he had to follow through on. And that characteristic has kind of followed him through his whole life. Very conscientious.
Agreed. What would you say is the nicest thing Brad has ever done for you?
Oh my goodness. It's really hard to pinpoint that because my sons have done wonderful things for me.
You can think about it for a minute. That's fine.
Hmm?
You can think about it. You don't have to answer right this second.
Well, when your mom you know that your sons are going to get married and that they're going to have families and be responsible for their wives, and they have a new woman in their life, and this woman is number one and mother now is number two. That's the way it's supposed to be, and mothers need to remember that. What Brad always has done, and he'll always make a special point of acknowledging me in the presence of family. He doesn't just ignore me. He'll come and give me a hug or whatever and just let me know that I matter to him. That's sweet.
Very.
I think that's sweet.
Very.
So.
What moment did you feel most proud of Eric?
How about right now? I was the most proud of Eric when he made the decision to work on his own marriage and his own life and his own family, and took all of that very seriously and took it before the Lord and grew spiritually and restored his family. That was huge. That was huge, and not very many men can do that because they don't have the inner courage to make a decision like that. That's huge. So that's when I'm the most proud of Eric. And there's many things, but that would be the most recent one on my mind because he has put his family in the right place where they should be.
What's the nicest thing Eric has ever done for you?
Oh man, these are questions that are really hard because Eric's done a lot of nice things for me. Eric is well, I mean, if you wanted to talk about a material gift or something like that, I concentrate more on the spiritual side of things and emotional, I guess, but the trip to Kuwait was just truly a lovely gift. It was wonderful. And then, but I think I appreciate Eric's honesty. Excuse me, his honesty in relating to me how I could have done things differently in relation to him. And he's been very honest and helped me recognize that. And I think that is truly a gift because it makes me grow too. It makes me grow. I had to look at my children and be very honest with God and say, are my children more important to me than the Lord? Is my husband more important to me than the Lord? And I had to be willing to. There's a passage in Matthew, and I know the exact address of it, but it talks about it talks about your priorities. and that you have to be willing to give up everything in order to serve the Lord. So I came to that frame of mind. I had to look at those precious little children that were helpless and didn't have anybody to take care of them but their parents, and that I would be willing to give them up for God if I had to. So I did have to come to that conclusion in my marriage and everything that I realized that everything that I own comes from the Lord, and that everything I have ever had has been a gift from Him. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, let's go back to Dan. What moment do you feel most proud of, Dan?
Anytime I have to pinpoint something that one of my children did, it's hard because they're such fine human beings. They're such good people. The world is lucky to have them. What was the question again? Most proud of Dan?
Do you feel most proud of Dan?
Dan. Well, I certainly appreciated him following through on his Eagle Scout. That was a human achievement. That was a fine achievement for a young man. But there's so many things about Dan that's just so... He's a very kind person. He's very thoughtful. He's very... willing to help. And a specific thing would be... I think I would have to say the way he has taken his marriage and his family seriously, and he wants them to have a relationship with the Lord. And I have to say that is right now, currently, that's what I always see him. Does everything he can to make sure they're provided for, and so on and so forth. A lot like you. You always work so hard to make sure your family's provided for. They've always been provided for beautifully.
What would you say is the nicest thing Dan has ever done for you?
I don't know if he remembers this, but one time he said to me, because I was talking about my sister Carol, and that she had lost her husband, and she was having to, I think it was about the time she was having to live with Mark. Mark had moved in, or Mark was doing everything for her. He was taking care of her.
What year was this?
And she did not have, pardon me?
What year was this? About?
Oh gosh.
Approximately.
When Uncle Mel died, maybe 2000.
Okay.
11 or something like that. I don't know, but anyway, Dan wasn't married at the time. I just remember him standing at the door, and he said, "Well, Mom, I'll take care of you." You know, and he wasn't even married. He didn't understand what that meant. I said, if anything happens to Dad, I'll take care of you. I don't know if he remembers that or not, but it sure made an impact on me. Because he was so young, and he didn't really have to say that. But he did. So that kind of tells you where his heart is.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. And this is regard to all three boys. What's the one thing you want your sons to remember after you're gone?
Well, I think that they're mature enough to overlook the fact that I'm human, that I made a lot of mistakes, but that they would recognize that I did make Jesus Christ an issue in their lives. That's what I want them to remember.
Amen.
Hmm?
Amen.
Because no parent is perfect. And you're going to make mistakes as you grow up. And children are such a... Our culture has so demeaned children and parenting and all that stuff. It's just not as important as it should be. If you're going to have a strong culture, you've got to have strong families. You just do. So, are we done?
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Mom.
I always cry when I talk about my kids.
Thank you, Mom. That's great. The end of our first interview. We'll do more later. Thank you for.
Well, I
for
think
doing
that
this.
I should also add that your dad was a good provider, and he did not leave us without a roof over our head or braces on your teeth or things that we needed. He provided. He did. He provided for us.